Thanks, Michael, and thank you everybody for joining the webinar tonight. What interesting times we live in. Wow. I'm a few years older than I care to admit, and certainly in all my years, I haven't seen anything like this. Really, really interesting times. We've got empty stadiums, empty swimming pools, empty tennis courts, empty cricket fields, empty clubhouses, empty changing rooms, empty canteens, empty bars, and empty committee meeting rooms. And I suspect in some few cases, we've got empty bank accounts as well. We've got our members and ourselves working from home. Their lifestyles change significantly. We've got people not doing what they were doing before, and we've got uncertainty around that. People adjusting to new ways of doing things, and their whole lives change from what was the routine before. We've got government restrictions that add further uncertainty to the situation we're in. We had 100 people limit on meetings, and then 10, and now 2. And whilst we don't know where this will end, we certainly know there'll be more restrictions coming. But the reality is that none of this can stop us doing what we need to do to work with our clubs and to make sure our clubs are best prepared to face the future. So what I hope to do tonight is to take you through a few steps that will address some of that uncertainty. We're all feeling uncertain. We've talked to councils, to state level organisations, national organisations, local associations, and no one really knows what the future holds. So in uncertain times, we often feel that we don't have control. And what I'm hoping tonight to do is to start to build a few steps, a little bit of structure that will give us some way of navigating our way through this so that we can start to feel that we are gaining a little bit of that control back, that we are starting to manage that uncertainty and turn it into certainty, and to feel that we are hopefully doing the right things. So we see this as being a 3-stage process. We don't know the time of these stages, but we do know that right now we're in stage 1. We're shutting down. And the question there, what should your club be doing now to shut down effectively, is the one that we're going to concentrate on this evening in this webinar. We will touch briefly on downtime and how you can prepare yourself for that downtime. And we do know that if we get stages 1 and stages 2 correct, then stage 3, the reopening, will be easier and will be more effective. And it's the clubs that do stages 1 and 2 the best that will be in the best shape when 3 comes along, be it in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or next season. And we don't know that yet. So to concentrate on the shutdown phase, we believe there are 5 main areas that we need to talk about. And with your permission, and I can see you all nodding there, we will go through these one by one. Communicate, secure assets and facilities, review finances, don't forget your statutory reporting, and then prepare for your downtime. So if we move on to the first one, communicate. Communication, as we know, is crucial at all times, but it's even more important now to make sure that you let people know what's going on. Your members will be uncertain, as we've described before, as we are, as all the involved bodies in sport are. But that's okay. And it's okay for you to let them know that you don't know the answer to their questions. But it's far more important that we communicate that to them and tell them that when we know, they will know, than it is to not communicate at all. It's also important that you pass on your position and what you're doing to your governing bodies. Governing bodies are trying to coordinate and come up with plans that help all clubs. So letting them know what's going on is a key part in helping them to come up with the right solutions. A further area that we think often gets overlooked with clubs is the other stakeholders. We all think to talk to our local or national bodies, and we all think to talk to our members. But do we think to talk to other stakeholders at this time? And those other stakeholders might be other tenants for the facilities that we use. They might be council or elected representatives who would need to know what's going on in their communities. So we strongly advise you to make sure you touch base with those people. I know the councils in Queensland have just changed over. The councillors want to know what's going on. Council officers want to know what's going on. Council officers are currently putting in plans to try to address the needs of clubs, and they need the information from you guys to make sure that those steps they take are the appropriate ones that are going to help us all. Okay, so talk to the other stakeholders, talk to your elected representatives, make sure you don't miss anybody out. Another area we think is important is to offer direct contact for your members. You've got several people probably on your committees, and giving people out a phone number that they can call if they need can be what certain people need at the moment. We've got people there that are probably not so confident with social media or the normal communication channels. Let's make sure that we don't miss anybody out. And this is an opportunity to also check that members are okay. Having a direct line to somebody on the committee, somebody that can listen to their issues, is vitally important. I was watching television last night and I saw that one of the big banks is doing a trawl of its database and has come up with over 250,000 of its customers who are over 70 years of age. And it's calling them all. The bank staff will be making direct phone calls to those 250,000 pensioners just to see if they're okay. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that's purely altruistic, but it's a great example that they're setting, and it's something that we as clubs and sports people can do. We're part of the community, so now is a great time when we're not busy with all the day-to-day running to just check in with people. There must be people in your club that you know are either older or living on their own or single parents or have other issues, maybe disability issues or mobility issues. Give them a call. Can the club go and get some shopping for them? Can you do those sorts of things? So that communication can take many forms and is very important. And what it will do is if you do that well, it will enable you to retain your relationships and indeed develop your relationships. We're working with clubs who aren't communicating with some of their members at the moment, and we know that the members are frustrated. And that's causing problems for the committee to then deal with in turn. So communicate, 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 and then communicate some more. Secure your facilities and assets. I want to ask a question here, which I think will appear up on your screen in a moment. How many of you have an up-to-date and regularly maintained asset register? Okay, that question should appear, so I will move on and we'll come back to the answer at the end of the slide. If you don't have that, then when we start doing things like securing the building and taking assets home, we maybe will lose track of them. So one of the key actions in securing facilities and assets is to take anything valuable away. Now that might be alcohol, it might be food, it might be laptop computers. Those that need to be should be on your asset register, and you can use your asset register to change the location. If it's things like food, if it's not perishable and the expiry dates are fine, then sure, keep it in the freezer. But if not, sell it off to your members, raise some cash, and when the canteen starts again in the future, that's the cash that you use to restock your canteen. If you have alcohol, it's probable that your license doesn't allow you to do takeaway sales. So one thing that a club that we know of has done is contacted its supplier, and the supplier has taken back anything that's unopened and given a full credit for it. That credit will be what the club spends when it needs to restock its bar to get itself going again. Okay, so get those things off site. If you have any cash or anything in pokie machines or vending machines, again, empty those out, get that cash out there. If the site has no valuables in it, then temptation for people to break in and steal things hopefully is reduced, and you can make that a more of a likelihood by saying to people through your communications to your members, hey, we've taken all the valuables away from the club. Put it on social media, the word will travel. At the same time, put a sign on the door. No valuables contained, no alcohol on site, no tobacco, no cash, whatever. Let's do what we can to make sure that people in the community with the wrong intentions know there's no point in breaking your windows or destroying your clubhouse. In terms of mothballing your site, it's really around the utilities and making sure that you're keeping it, those that need to be maintained on, and those that can be turned off. And if you're not sure, talk to your utility provider. Water will likely be kept on so that you can water fields and so on, but you might not need the gas or electricity kept on. Talk to the providers, see what their advice is, and get those things closed down if you can. Once the clubhouse is secured, then you might need to find who on the committee is going to come and do a little checkup every now and then. Now, it might be the groundsman that's mowing the lawn, or you might have somebody else that can come and do that. But this is an opportunity just to make sure that someone's driving by or checking up on it every couple of days, that there's not a flood because you left a tap on, there's not a break-in that's occurred that hasn't been fixed, or any of the things that you need to check up on. one opportunity this provides you with is to check out who's got keys. So the key register, rather like your asset register, might be something that you need to develop at this stage. So let's go back to the responses to the survey. And what have we got? How many people? You tell me, Michael?
Yes. So it's really interesting. I think that a few people maybe didn't have a chance to answer before it disappeared, but the responses weren't particularly surprising in that it was about 75% of people who said that they didn't have an asset register. And there's also, from our point of view, Chris, as you understand, there's understanding what an asset register actually is and knowing that it's different from that depreciation schedule that may or may not have been updated at the back of our financials for the last decade or more.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing we've got, which we can help you with, is that we've got at CPR Group, we've developed an asset track system, which is an online asset management tool, which we are able to offer to you as attendees on this webinar tonight as a trial for 6 months. What this system does is it logs all your assets and it produces a maintenance schedule for you that's costed. So it tells you what maintenance you need to do and when you need to do it, and it records all the asset values and everything else that you need to manage your assets. An asset register is a requirement in Queensland, at least, of all incorporated associations. So those of you that have honestly said that you don't have that, this is an opportunity to not only get yourself a good management tool, but to also become compliant. So to do that, just simply go to our website and register yourself on the contact list there. Okay, so some honest answers, and thank you for those. Next step, finances. This is probably the area we get most questions in. We're talking to the clubs at the moment. First and simplest thing is get all that cash into the bank. You've got cash in petty cash tins, and you've got vending machines, and you might have little floats in the kitchen or the canteen. Get it all banked. 2 reasons. One is obviously it's safety. It's not going to go missing if it's in the bank. And secondly, you may need to manage your cash tightly. So knowing what you've got at this stage is a really good start. Update any budgets or forecasts that you've got. Now, any budgets or forecasts that you have are almost inevitably no longer current and will need revision. Don't make it a complex task. At this stage, really, you just need to manage the cash that you have. So all you need is a simple calculation that says, what do we have in the bank now? What can we expect to come in over the next 3 to 6 months? And that may well be 0. And then what bills do we have to pay? And what bills can we expect that will come in over that period of time? And that will give you a very quick reckoning of where you're at, whether you have enough money, whether you don't have enough money. Those clubs that can sit here confidently now saying they do have enough cash, well done, good on you. But you're probably in the minority. Most will be sitting there going, we don't quite know how we're going to manage this. So to do that, the first step I would advise is that you contact any creditors you've got. If you have people that you owe money to, especially if they're government type organizations, be it councils, be it the utilities, those sorts of ex-government bodies, they are expecting clubs to contact them and say, we can't pay you right now. We'll pay you when the season starts, or pay you when we have money. Okay, so contact them, talk to them. They're expecting it. What we don't advise at this point is burying your head in the sand. The creditors that you have, the people to whom you owe money, will be very happy to listen to you and to help you, especially those bigger organizations, those utilities and those government bodies. For smaller creditors, smaller medium enterprises that maybe are also doing it tough, then talk to them also, but see if maybe there's some sort of payment plan that you can offer, some sort of agreement you can come to that works for you and works for them. Again, this is just a matter of fronting up to the issues. It's not as though any of this is secret to anybody, and make sure that then an honest and open conversation is the way to deal with that. If you need any help with that, then contact us. We're dealing with this with a number of clubs already, and we can certainly help in this area. The next one, that probably the second biggest questioning area that we're getting is refund policy. A lot of the winter sports, which is often the big participation sports, have received cash, some of it in full for the season, some of it part payments from members, and now they're not delivering any activity. Our advice at this stage is, in the absence of advice from governing bodies, and we know that all the major sports are still not sure what they're doing on this, to tell your members that you are still reviewing your refund policy. It will be determined once you get some guidance from above, but you are committed as a club to making sure that it's fair for everybody. And that, I think, is the best we can do at the moment. Again, we're in uncertain times. People understand that. But if we communicate that we're still working on it and that we'll be fair, then I think you'll get a good response from people. Having said that, if there are any of those cases of real hardship that you probably know about as a committee already, then by all means, treat them on a one-by-one basis. If people need some money back to keep food on the table for the kids, and of course they get it. But as a general policy, let's make sure that we just say, hold on, we're working with the right bodies. We're making sure that the governing organizations are giving us guidance. And when we know what we're doing, we will let you know. Lots of downsides. On the upside, watch for government recovery packages. They're starting to come. One council in southeast Queensland has already put up a grant scheme to help clubs through this very crisis. That's already happening. We know from our conversations with other bodies, including councils and state level organizations, that they are also working out how best to help. So there is more money coming. There will be more packages coming. Now, we at CPR Group will monitor that. And if you register yourselves on our website for the newsletter, we'll make sure that we send that out in a timely manner to you. But it's a good one to be ready for. So there will be money coming. And we don't know when, and we don't know how much, and we don't know what the criteria are. But given that they're trying to keep sports clubs going, it's probably that the bar will be set on the lower side rather than the higher side in terms of qualifying for this sort of funding. One more thing on that often clubs forget on this sort of occasion is to check your insurance. Now, I know most insurance policies, even for business interruption, probably won't pay out in this situation, but it's worth checking, seeing what you can claim. And I put on the slide there claims and coverage. The other side of the coin of this is that if you do have things like business interruption policies that you're paying for at the moment, cancel them. Don't waste your money on covering eventualities that aren't going to happen. If you're not operating for 6 months, you're not going to lose any income because you're not got any income. So just be smart with your insurance and think about what it is that you need to be covered for at the moment, to what extent you need to be covered, and make sure that's all you're covered for. Okay, the fourth area that we think we need to look at, and may well be forgotten in these times of crisis, is some of our statutory reporting. Every club has obligations. Some might have business activity statements or liquor and gaming quarterly returns, or even annual returns to the Office of Fair Trading. Just because the club is shut down, these obligations haven't gone away. So make sure you don't overlook them. Make sure that those things that you should be doing are taking place. Another good option now is get your audits done if they're due. There's no reason why you can't electronically send all the financial data to the auditors and get them working on it. There's no reason why that should not continue as normal at the moment. So again, in all the confusion and all the uncertainty, don't forget some of this basic stuff and make sure it keeps going ahead. If your AGM is due, in Queensland, the Office of Fair Trade has extended the due date of that. Currently under legislation, you need to hold your annual general meeting within 6 months of the end of after your financial year end. Now it's been extended to 12 months. So you have an extra 6 months after your financial year end, in other words, another year, in which to hold your AGM. And that's fine. Now, no permission is needed from the Office of Fair Trade to take advantage of that relaxation. But we think best practice is still just to drop them an email. Go to their website, click on that, drop them an email, and let them know that you intend to take advantage of that. And lastly, and moving on to the next sort of phase, is prepare for the downtime. You've got a great opportunity here to get some work done that probably wouldn't have happened with the busyness of the seasons happening. So have a think about how you might do that and what you might do. How will your committee communicate? Are you going to still get together on Skype or Zoom or in pairs? How's that going to work? Get that organized and get it agreed so everybody understands what the new communication channels are. So many committees pass on information by catching up at the club. A quick chat with the chairman or the president down at the club is how a lot of the stuff gets done. That's stopped now. So you need to ask yourself how we're going to communicate in the future and how's the best way to do that. The second thing is agree ownership of tasks. Often things get done by little committees chatting and getting an agreement and moving things forward bit by bit. This might be a time when you need as a committee to say, okay, here's a project. committee member A is going to take ownership of this. Here are the parameters. Here's what we want delivered. Here's the timescales. Let them get on with it. Okay, great time for delegation. Great time for people to step up and to work on their own or with others electronically. But let's make sure that we're not dragging the chain on some of this stuff because we still all want to be involved in something. This is an opportunity to say to people, off you go and do it. Another opportunity that presents is identify members who have downtime. Now, a lot of people are working from home, and anybody that follows social media will see all the funny stories of parents struggling to work with kids at home. And there's certainly a large cohort that's the reality of, and they'll feel that they have less time. Some of your members may well have more time. Some of your members may be laid off. They may be at home doing nothing all day long. So send out a social media question saying who can help, who's got some downtime. And you might find that some of the people who haven't previously volunteered now step up. Good opportunity to get new people involved and to strengthen your committee base in the future. Having got the resources and talk to people, identify what your priorities are for the downtime. Great time to look at the Constitution, bylaws, policies. Great time to look at risk management and discuss disaster recovery plans. Sorry, I didn't say that very well. Great time to get an asset register and an asset maintenance plan together. Have you got strategic plans for the future? Not just for the long term, but now maybe a shorter term plan that says these are the steps we need to take to bounce back when we reopen. So it might be a shorter term plan that documents or lists all the actions that you need to take when you get the green light to go again. And lastly, but not least, stay positive. Very important. The positive message will lead to positive outcomes. Negative messages lead to negative outcomes. The clubs that are going to come out of this the best will be the ones that have a positive mindset, that see it all as an opportunity, that get the shutdown phase dealt with professionally and quickly, and move on to the downtime so that they can then get some of these jobs done and be ready to reopen. Okay, I'm going to pass back to Michael, who is going to go through some of the questions that you very kindly sent in.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris. It's fascinating to hear all of the different aspects and the way that you've just been able to share that with us and the work that you've been doing with clubs directly, and to see that this is a tricky time, but that there are opportunities for dealing with this in the best way possible. It was fascinating. I've been watching the questions come in almost just before you answer them. So a lot of them you've already addressed. I will run through them. The first question that came in obviously was, should we give refunds? So I think in covering off on that, you gave some really good advice, which was to communicate really transparently with your members and let them know we're not going to leave you in the dark. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add on that?
I know some sports, the state level organisation has said they're not going to waive their own portion of the fees. And the justification given for that has been we may run competitions later in the year. So I know some clubs who may take place in a normal 11-a-side sport outdoor season who are saying, well, that isn't going to happen in the normal form this year, but we might run a 6-a-side nighttime competition or a small-sided mixed game to recompense for that. So just be aware that if you're giving refunds, you may need to think about retaining the portion that you pass up the line to cover insurance and other things like that, because you may well run other competitions later in the year that you haven't done in the past.
That's great. Another one of the questions that came in that you were able to address already was, will there be funding support available for sports to help us through this crisis?
Yeah, I think for sure. Well, we're already seeing it. We've already seen it in I say, South East Queensland. One of the councils has already done it. We had conversations today with another council, and they're just working out how they're going to do something, but they will do something. And I think personally that when the government has worked through more of the process, there will be stimulus later down the line that says we need to reboot society. We need to get society kick-started again. At the moment, the government quite rightly is dealing with jobs and more important things. But when we're at a stage that we're going to be going back towards normality, then I think they're going to be saying, here's funding to do that. And sports clubs and community groups has to be the way that they're going to do a lot of that work.
Yeah, we're very confident about that. So we've had a few more that I'll try and summarise down in the interest of time. What can our coaches be doing now to keep members engaged?
Okay, I've seen a few things on Facebook where you've got little skills sessions set up, where you've got ideas. And there's a lot of stuff going around on social media. I'm personally, I follow soccer, football quite closely, and there's a lot of stuff on that, and I'm sure there are for other sports too, where it's just little simple drills, one child and the ball, or one player and the ball, or whatever the equipment is, and just getting them to practice basic skills at home. I think the videos are the way to do that. If we can do a demonstration video and issue that out, then kids can do that. And also then just make it a competition. Kids love competition. So if you're juggling a ball on something, a ball on a tennis racket, the first one to 10, or can you do 20? Can you do it left-handed? I don't know. Use your imaginations. But there are things there that kids will respond. And if the kids are coming back to you, then that's the engagement that you're looking for.
Absolutely. And there are some coaches who are doing that really well.
Yeah.
I'll summarise a few other questions down into one with two parts. Can we run working bees in our downtime? And I'll let you touch on that one. And then the second part to that, if not, what can we do to get ahead? So I think that you have given us some great ideas for how to use our downtime effectively.
Yeah, I've got a few clubs that are looking at doing working bees, and I'm not totally across the legislation. I wouldn't want to encourage anybody to contravene the new legislation in terms of meeting and being out of doors. I guess if something needs painting, then one person could go to the club and paint it. But I would advise you to check the legislation first. I'm sorry, I'm not expert on that, but working bees could be that you look at the policies that you don't have in your club. You maybe go to your governing body and see what their policies say about, I don't know what it might be, and start to get some of that paperwork stuff done. So there are things that you can do through working together, but maybe not of a physical nature at the clubhouse, but in terms of documentation and putting some of those things in place.
The virtual working bee. I love it.
Virtual working bee.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you again to everyone who's been able to join us this evening. For anyone who joined us late, I noticed that a few people kept trickling in, so that's fantastic. If you would like to visit our website, cprgroup.com.au/webinars, on that site you can do two things. Firstly, you can register for our upcoming webinars. Our next week's webinar at this stage is scheduled for Monday night, and it will be on the topic of running great meetings online. So we're very excited to do that because everyone is learning, as Chris mentioned, with people working from home, everyone's learning about how to do how to do online meetings. I think it's the good bit that still could use some work. And it's okay to show your puppies every now and again. So go onto our website there and register for that. But you'll also find a link there to pre-recorded webinars. So if you've missed the early stages of this webinar, feel free to go and have another look there. While you're on our website, I would certainly encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. The frequency that we're pushing information out has increased rapidly because there's a lot of information to get out. What we're trying to do, though, is give you information that is important for you. If you're like us, you're probably sick of seeing the information come through from companies who are saying, and we are doing this, and this is how many times we're washing our hands every day. Yeah, but how does that help us, please? So that's really where we're focusing. We're focusing on what we can offer to you to help you. If, as Chris said, if you'd like to sign up for an extended length of time for Asset Track, ASSETTRAC, which is for Total Reporting and Control, then you can do that via the Contact Us link on our website. You can, of course, register for a free trial directly on assettrack.com.au. And I would encourage you to let us know that you've done that, because then we can provide you the extended access to that from the system as well. Thank you very much again to everyone who has joined us. As I said earlier, if there are some questions that we haven't had a chance to answer, please stay online and we'll give those an answer now. Otherwise, we'll get back to you on email over the coming days. If you think of other questions or indeed other topics that you would like us to cover, please drop us an email at info@cprgroup.com.au and we will be very happy to help as usual.
Indeed.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.